Welcome to the Profitable Painter Podcast. The mission of this podcast is simple: to help you navigate the financial and tax aspects of starting, running, and scaling a professional painting business. From the brushes and ladders to the spreadsheets and balance sheets, we've got you covered. But before we dive in, a quick word of caution. While we strive to provide accurate and up-to-date financial and tax information, nothing you hear on this podcast should be considered as financial advice specifically for you or your business. We're here to share general knowledge and experiences, not to replace the tailored advice you get from a professional financial advisor or tax consultant. We strongly recommend you seeking individualized advice before making any significant financial decisions. All right, this is Daniel, the founder of Bookkeeping for Painters, and today I'm here with David Franco, who is a co-founder over at Protiv. So I'm super excited to have him on the podcast today. We're going to be talking about all things in regards to performance pay. How's it going, David?
Going great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you describe what you do for listeners?
Yeah. So Protiv is a worker incentive software that allows you to provide monetary incentives to hourly workers for beating your labor budgets. Really focused on the idea, if I give your painters a budget of 100 hours, and they beat the hours, let's say they get it down to 80 hours, now they've made a potential kind of bonus of 20 hours that you can kind of split with the workers and also redistribute them. Really focused on creating alignment with companies and the hourly workers.
Yeah, it's an awesome software. I know I work with several of my clients that use Protiv, and they're just raving about it. We just got back from a conference that me and you were at, that Brandon Lewis's APPC conference, and there's several folks presented on how they've implemented incentive program, some using Protiv, and so it's definitely an awesome software. So I'm super excited to dig into that. Before we get into that, could you tell me a little bit about your background? Like, where did you come up with this idea, and kind of where did you get your start from?
Yeah, so I've been in the painting industry since I was a kid, kind of doing helper work for a long time, and then when I got into college, I also was part of a painting company, and I ended up running a residential house painting company in my 20s, managing, just crew of painters, and I learned performance pay there and how impactful it could be. I eventually sold that business and moved into multifamily painting and renovations, and that business was scaling really quite a bit. I went from like 15 employees to 150 employees, and I always thought that the hourly pay market system was just broken. As a contractor, I get paid by the job, but then I have to turn around and pay people by the hour, and I just felt like that incentive, that there's just a misalignment there. So there had to be a better way. So I used to do like I learned from a painting company I used to work for early in my career. They had like an incentive program, so I took whatever I learned at that current job. We did it on a very janky software, but I implemented that similar system in my company, but I built software to kind of reinforce that thesis. Like, if I can take a budget and present it to my workers, they'll stop thinking about how many hours I can work on a given week or a given day, and they'll start more focused on like, what can I get done, and that creates a win-win environment for the worker and for the company, right? So they can share in the profits. And the single most impactful thing that I did in my business is increase worker engagement, because it has a trickle down effect. If my workers are more engaged, they're communicating better. Their teamwork is up, right? If they're much more productive and they're more engaged, then I'm spending less on management on, per dollar, and my OpEx expenses are down, right? So it's such a vital thing to get alignment from your workforce. And once I've nailed that in my own company, I was like, you know what, there are a lot of other companies that can use this type of software because it didn't exist in the marketplace. So then I took Protiv and I made it into a software company, and now we have thousands and thousands of workers all over the country using it.
Yeah, that's an awesome story. And I think a lot of folks might discount the power of incentives. I think Charlie Munger said something like, "You get what you incentivize." He was, I
Show
know he
me
was,
is who said that. I love that quote where he says, uh, show show me the incentive, I'll show you the output, right?
right,
um and it's funny, it's so true, especially in hourly market. A lot of these guys want to make more money. Unfortunately, in the last 25 years, their income has kind of flatlined in relative to inflation, right? So that's like, there right now, like, just any way to give them disposable income is going to make a dramatic impact. But as contractors, we don't just want to take that from profit, right? So why don't you figure out how to give them disposable income by getting them to change their behavior, and the lift comes from their ability to take more ownership on the job.
right, and it also makes it easier for like management of pay, because instead of like, "Hey, can I get a raise?" Questions that you might get all the time, you can kind of just point to the incentive program, like, "Hey, if you want to make more money by the hour, just be more efficient," basically.
Exactly. How do you get them to want to think differently, right? How do you get them to start thinking about, like, could we do this better? Could we communicate better, right? Could we, instead of leaving the shop at 7:45, leave the shop at 7:30, right? Get out the door like early. Like, those are the things that you can only do, and it starts with the incentive, right? Um, I do want to point out, like, this is, Proto is a great tool, and like in pay performance, a great tool, and to kind of start an incentive, but it also, like, it opens the idea of, like, how do I improve my culture, right? Because it has to be in parallel to communication and competition and reinforcing, recognition, and accountability, right? That is the most powerful thing. That what implementing a pay per performance solution, it's about improving the culture of the business more than anything.
Yeah, and just from my own experience, making any kind of change, but especially a big change like this, can be difficult. Have you seen best practices either from implementing a performance pay in your own business, or from what you've seen other folks do, on
Yeah,
kind of the best ways, or some ways to implement that culture change?
totally. So first off, I think it's important that, when you're implementing a pay, like an incentive program, you want to do the least amount, uh, create the least amount of friction, right? And by doing that is create the, things that don't need to change, you shouldn't change, right? So for us, um, we help companies integrate to their existing software. So we integrate with all these different time and attendance solutions, whether it be QuickBooks Time or Jobber. Um, we have about 12 right now. We're adding about 2 to 3 a month. Um, and so integrating directly, and we also have a file import as well. So we want to keep them doing what they're doing, right? So, and the second thing is, like, not changing their wage, right? That's important. Like, don't create, there should be no reason they won't buy in, right? But saying that, hey, we're not going to change the wage. all we're going to do is, if you beat the budgets, now you have this opportunity to earn a bonus, right? So keep it really, really simple. Nothing too complicated. It should be very obvious. That's one. Number two is start communicating now about, like the budgets. Talk about like what's going on. Like there should be a weekly meeting or a touch point with the team, with the crew around like the overall performance. So if you're doing that now, even before you start, implementing a pay performance is only going to add and benefit you, because you're already talking about the budgets. You're already talking about debrief. They're going to be incentivized to communicate with in a weekly meeting, in a touch point. I think those are some of the most, by having some kind of touch point, a weekly meeting, integrating with your existing software, and then keeping it really like basic. I think that's the easiest way to kind of get this off the ground fairly quickly.
Yeah, those are some great recommendations. So basically start communicating about it now. You talked about having a budget for each project, so that the implied task there is make sure you're using production rates to bid your jobs that generate budgeted hours for each project. So there's tools out there like PaintScout. I did a podcast with John Bryant, the CEO of PaintScout, which we talked about in depth about that. So if you're listening and you don't know what production rates are, definitely listen to that. So get those production rates to generate the work order that have the budgeted hours, and start like you just said, David, start communicating with your team about that, each week. And then the other thing you said was make it easy. So not changing, most folks in the painting space for hourly tracking, they're using QuickBooks Time and ClockShark and Busy, which all those time trackers integrate with Protiv that plug right in for the incentive program. And then so you're not really changing their workflow. You're just kind of making it easy to implement. They're just getting an opportunity to make that bonus. So that's awesome.
Exactly.
So can you go through some of the features of how Protiv actually works? Because I think a lot of folks, they maybe looked at performance pay in the past, or that maybe they've tried it, or they're doing it now. And they often, I've seen folks use spreadsheets, which have the formulas kind of plugged in there and they're tracking the job costing for each project, which it can work. It's just it has some limitations. Can you go through why this is different than something like a spreadsheet?
Yeah. So one of the things that some key features is we want to make it automated as possible for you guys. So first off, like let's say you're using PaintScout and QuickBooks Time, right? So every single time a job goes from a quote to a work order and PaintScout, we are able to bring that over and create the budget, right? Could be the budget could be created by the number of hours on the project, or a percentage of the contract price. Let's say you want to say 30% of every dollar becomes the budget in Protiv. So automatically gets synced up right there. And then on top of that, if you're using, QuickBooks Time, as your workers are clocking into those job IDs, right? We then pair that job ID with the job ID that's coming in from PaintScout, right? And by doing that, we're merging the budget and the time to now allow us to see how they're performing automatically. And then every day, your workers are given a text notified on all the jobs they worked on the previous day and how many hours they have remaining on each budget, right? By providing some kind of notice, they can then every day have a scoreboard to really see kind of how they're performing and where and what do they need to kind of pivot to if they're slightly going over budget or they're going over our budget on certain jobs. They have that kind of notice right away. From there, we have an app that they can access all the data, right? I think a really good program, when we think about a good incentive program, it comes down to a couple key features. Number one, it has to be really simple that we discuss, right? So on the app, you're going to be able to see, like, this is my budget. This is how many hours we've already consumed on the budget. This is how much is left, right? You can explain that in 20 seconds, and 90% of employees are going to get it. The second piece that's super important is transparency. And this is actually how using spreadsheets really fails, because workers want to believe in the numbers. They need to believe. If they don't trust in the numbers, they won't buy in, right? But by having a software that's on their phone, they can physically see how much money they made, how much money they have coming on, how much is over budget, how much is not. It creates that buy-in. And then the next piece of it for us, another feature is quality control, right? So you're going to be able to kind of manage what jobs get approved when they're done, right? Or when you get paid by the customer, and that is actually what generates the bonus, okay? And all those bonuses sit on a statement. So every, let's say, semi-monthly or monthly, they get to see which jobs they earned bonus and which jobs they didn't. We have various different options as well to make it even simpler for you guys, for our customers. One thing we have is the ability to actually merge over budget jobs and bonus jobs. So if you had 10 jobs and 7 of them actually made profit and 3 of them didn't, bonus, we're able to show that on the statement to offset it from those jobs. So they take the wins and the losses if you want, okay? We also have a way, let's say you pay out the bonus 100%, and then a month later there's a callback. We're able to track the cost on that job and then roll that callback cost to the next statement to kind of pay back from future bonuses. Okay, so when we talk about good bonus program, we have making it simple, transparent, right, is number 2, and number 3 is frequency. Okay, frequency, paying them in a cadence that they mean something. If you're paying bonuses every quarter, every year, they can't connect to that job, and they don't, you're not going to get the level of engagement that you want, right? And the last piece is super important. It has to be a win-win for everybody, right? If you're paying out a bunch of bonuses and then you're not seeing any results, right? You're not seeing an increase in your bottom line, increased production rates, then what's the point, right? And vice versa, if they're really pushing themselves and they're changing the behavior, but they're not actually getting rewarded, guess what? They're going to stop doing it, right? So it has to be a win-win to a successful pay performance program.
Yeah, you covered so much there. So there's so much to talk about. So first of all, like, making it simple, like if you said if you're using PaintScout in like QuickBooks Time or ClockShark or Busy, whatever, you connect it to Protiv, connect your PaintScout to Protiv, it's going to pull in your budgeted hours, and then when they start logging their time in QuickBooks Time or Busy, ClockShark, whatever, you connect that to Protiv, that will link up the work order and the budget hours and the actual hours that they're clocking against. And so that right there, that takes out a lot of administrative hassle with tracking. And so if you've ever run a performance-based system, trying to do it in a spreadsheet, it can be kind of crazy. So that one thing right there, that's really awesome and amazing, just to make things so much more simple.
Exactly.
And then, yeah. And then, I know PaintScout is one, Jobber is another one that does this, right? Where you can actually connect it straight in.
Yeah. Also, Estimate Rocket, we have a way to do that. We have a way to do it with Monday.com. There's a lot of, we use Zapier to pull in for some of them. We have a direct integration with Jobber, okay, most of them. But if it's just pulling in the one job, We have various different ways to do that to kind of make it a seamless connection.
Okay, awesome. And then the next thing you talked about is the transparency. So like, I know basically the employee will have an app on their phone. And so when they go on the job site, they can just look at the, where they are on the job and kind of check in to see how much time they have and how much of an hourly rate can they get, what do they need to hit to get a certain hourly rate, right? That's something they can just check on their phone at any point in time.
Exactly. Yes, and they physically get to see how they're doing on the job because it's scoreboard, right? To see where you at, how much money you can make. Like, it's such a vital part of this, and that puts less pressure on the company to provide these like spreadsheet reports, right? Where you don't want to show other people's wages, for example. Like in this product, you're able to hide people's wages. They can see only their stuff, but they can see overall how the overall budget is performing. But they see on their level, they could say, hey, I'm making $25 an hour. And now with this bonus, I'm now making $29 an hour, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how that projects for the future, which is key.
That's awesome. And then the other thing was, at the end of a pay cycle, it'll basically give you, hey, here's like the bonuses earned, and then that can just be taken for payroll purposes and paid out according to like a report that you can pull right from Protiv.
Yep. You pull a report and you show how much you want to pay per in bonuses that gets pushed to the next paycheck.
And like you said, you can have a quality control, even though they might have gone under on the budget, but maybe like a production manager QCs the work and was like, well, we had too many touch-ups or something, so they didn't qualify. So you can kind of approve or disapprove the performance pay.
Exactly. But keep in mind, if they go back, they just eats into their bonus, right? So it's just, I love to call this a quality assurance bonus, because right now, as a company, we're not incentivizing. Most companies are not incentivizing anything when you pay them just by the hour, right? So now you have a tool that would say, like, if it's cost them money, right, to do poor work, right? As contractors, I always look at it this way. When I was running my construction company, it's like, how do I get my workers to think that my budgets is their money? If you can do that, you're winning.
Yeah, that's a great way to think about it. Yep. And then another common question when implementing performance pay overall is what you kind of mentioned, which was, I pay out a bonus and then I get a call back like a week or two later that, hey, you missed a spot or whatever. And so you have to send the team back over there, but you already pay them, all the bonus out for that. So it sounds like you have some sort of recapture bonus. You can recapture that bonus on their next payout.
Exactly. You can recapture the bonus, and basically take that cost and reallocate it to their next statement, right? So that it offsets against the other bonuses.
That's amazing. Well, what are some of the results that you've seen either implementing in your own business or helping, I know you work with scores of other painting businesses.
Yeah. I mean, when implemented, and like I said, Protiv is just a tool, to kind of really allow you to make this a lot easier and create buy-in, right? It also, when paired with really great communication, the results are astounding. We've seen painting companies, reduce their overall kind of increase their overall net profit between 4 and 7%. I've had companies that in 120 days went from going over budget on 42% of all their projects down to 8%. Right. We on average right now, our workers are seeing about an 18% increase in their pay. So not only are companies making more money, But on top of that, also, workers are driving, making a lot more money, right? And how and that impact has a trickle down effect on recruiting, right? On culture. It's harder for people to leave when they're making a lot more money, right? Your talent pool. So there's some great things when you really tap into getting the workers just to care more and be more engaged.
Yeah, that's awesome. And those are huge numbers, by the way. Maybe it might not sound like, 4 to 7% increase, percentage points. Like if 7% of $1 million business would be, $70,000. So you're basically increasing your net income by $70,000. And, a painting business, if owned by a single owner, that's a 70,000, you made $70,000 more this year, new
Yeah.
discretionary earnings. So that's huge.
Yeah. And that's, like, it is not uncommon that people are able to lower their overall labor cost by over 10%, you know? So, like, that is very common. And on top of that, if your team is working 15, 20, 25% more efficiently, if you're backfilled with jobs, that means you can do 25% more revenue, you know?
Mhm.
Which some of my companies, they're seasonal. They have seen they have hard time finding labor in their particular markets. It, they just care about the revenue. They're able to increase their revenue by 15% in a given year. That is super impactful to their bottom
Mhm.
line.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. Um, what are some common mistakes that maybe you've seen, or maybe you teach yourself trying to implement a
Yeah.
performance-based system that we can help folks avoid?
So it is a commitment, right? Meaning that, if you want to just use our software, turn it on and think it's going to work, it's not, right? It has to be a commitment, and it's not a lot of commitment. It's more like a commitment to communication, that this is part of the culture. You're going to talk about it every week. You're going to diagnose any issues you might face, right? Because what pay for performance does, it shines a light on the business, and any business problems that you might have, they're going to be more prevalent, right? Because now your workers are going to say something. For example, if you have a logistics issue that you never get the materials on time there, right, and the workers are sitting around sometimes, guess what? Prior, maybe the workers didn't say anything because they're getting
Mhm.
paid by the hour. There was just no
Yeah.
incentive. But now that their pockets are going to be affected, they're going to say, "Hey, I can't beat these budgets because the manager never has the materials here. Like, I never have the right equipment. I never." So now
Yeah.
it's like, whoa, I have to make. They put more pressure on the organization. If your salespeople are not writing clear scopes, guess what? The workers are going to say something, because, like, how are they going to do if there's like change orders that are, that it's like like a particular salesperson is constantly over budget, it's constantly underbidding jobs and not clear. Guess what? Workers are going to say something, right? But you have to be committed to kind of attacking those problems head on and communicating with the team and collaborating, right? And if you
Mhm.
take that approach, some pick it up slower than others. It always works, right? You might
Mhm.
have, and certain people that aren't in it, you're gonna have to make decisions that they need to be let go. You know, they are not. If you want to be an organization of excellence and performance, you know, you have to make that decision. Um, and I think, if you take that step, it makes such a drastic impact that it outweighs the time committed to this. Will outweigh, you know, is so minuscule compared to kind of the the opportunity of improvement of your business and the profit and just the culture. It makes your, as a contractor, you know, if your people care more, that means you're going to have a lot more time on your hands. You don't have to babysit people,
Mhm.
right? And it's impactful. So yeah, so hands down, look, the software will make it easier. I can implement this in 30 minutes with you, right? It's a super simple concept conceptually. It's your ability to kind of want to put time here and make it a priority.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think that the takeaway here is don't try to implement this in the middle of the summer at the height of production, because it's going to like expose all your weaknesses simultaneously and get everybody like, it's like going from you a single owner to everyone's now a partial owner, and they're like really bought into like getting more money. So they're
Yeah.
pointing out all
And
the flaws in your system.
even if you do implement it in the heat of summer, we can implement it with one crew, and that makes it super easy,
Yeah.
right? And then make it, and then you can implement, once you start with one crew, just make sure that that one crew is on it. And then that actually really kind of cool, because if they are making bonuses, what you want is, it's almost like, it's like advertisement to the rest of the organization. Oh, wow, I want to be part of that. I want to be part of that. And then once
Mm-hmm.
you get that kind of like talk and communication, you've won. Because all they're
Mm-hmm.
saying is like, boss, I want to be part of a program that allows me to beat your budgets.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
and that's super powerful.
Yeah. That's a good idea. Start with one crew, to your best crew, ideally, and have them
Your best
succeed.
crew.
And yeah.
Yeah,
Awesome.
show that they people can beat your budgets, and it it's super impactful.
Good stuff. All right. Well, what can folks do to learn more about Protiv?
Yeah, so go to protiv.com and we can get you signed up for a demo, and get you scheduled to get started. We offer a free trial. It's a 30-day free trial with, some test pro pays as well. Um, and that's it, right? We get and one of our representatives will reach out and get you going.
Yeah, and this is kind of a no-brainer. I mean, I have several clients that work with you guys that have the employee model, and they're seeing great results. So it's really, if you're struggling to come up with incentives, definitely check out Protiv and get started with this. And it's also good, because the governments, state governments and federal governments are looking at the subcontractor model, it's coming under more scrutiny. So if you're thinking of switching over to the employee model, this is a great platform to kind of have the same mentality of paying subs, because usually subs get paid like a flat rate, and this is a way to kind of do the same thing in compliance with paying people properly through payroll. So it's kind of a good trade-off there.
Totally.
Awesome. Any parting thoughts on performance payroll or anything that we haven't covered so far?
No, I mean, I think that's great. Um, I think that I think I think the most important thing when considering a pay performance system is like, how important is your culture to you, right? And I'm not saying that you can't have a good culture without pay performance, but if your people are really overperforming in your business, like, how do I share in the wealth here? And I think that you know aligning incentives is such a valuable thing for the organization. So
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks, David. I really appreciate you joining us today and sharing your wisdom on pay for performance. And if you would like to ask any questions about performance pay, or ask David about Protiv, if you go to Facebook, type in Grow Your Painting Business, feel free to plug in your questions into the group, and love to hear from you. Otherwise, we will see you next week.
awesome.